All right. So anybody at home, we miss you here at school, but hey, we're all going to be at home here pretty soon. So we're going to talk about the Unit 3 Mastery and kind of answer any, little side questions or stuff to help you get to the point where we can solve. So in number 1, we talk about my wife Chelsea telling me that Target has another sale this weekend that's going to be $28 off when you spend $80. Now this phrasing is tricky because we're not actually going to spend $80, right? It's when we try to spend $80, they then reduce our price. So if you go up to the register and you only try to spend $78, you don't get the discount. It's when you spend, quote unquote, $80. That's why I put this here. If the original price is $80, you'd pay $28 less. So if we start highlighting things to try to help us out, if we have $28 off of $80, and what we're trying to answer is a percent change formula, well, we know, or a percent change question, we know percent change is the amount of change that happens divided by what the thing would have been before the change happens. So in this situation, our before the change happens, the price it would have been. The amount of change is the amount Target takes off, right? That's our change. Our price comes down. We do the division, and why do we multiply by 100? Ooh, not money, Bella. Percent. Yeah, it's hard with masks on. That's one thing I'm looking forward to with remote is us all not wearing masks. And my lips are on fire right now because we just had hot chicken takeover, so that's a whole different thing. And number 2, sorry, I'll give you a minute with number 1 to wrap that up if you need. I do not need to move super fast. We've got time to go over each of these today. And it helps the camera focus. If we haven't talked about that in this class, that's why I have that quarter sitting here now. I realized putting something shiny in here, the graph paper is too dull. The colors kind of wash together. So something shiny helps the camera like crisp up on something. Yeah, I was chatting with one of my friends who knows more than me, and they're like, your camera has nothing to focus on. Give it something to focus on. I'm like, oh, you're smarter than me. I'm glad I have friends that are smarter than me. Please make sure that if you have other problems that need answered and you don't need help on the ones we're talking about, that you go work on those problems. So in number 2, Cabilo and Estes are messing around in the lab. Go figure. And they have invented this new fertilizer, and they dump it on their plant. When they leave, now I will apologize. I use the word currently and I use the word now, and I really shouldn't use both of those with different numbers. So currently was like the night before, right? The now is the new height. But what people are running into here is we need to figure out the amount of change. So if I went through and highlighted some important stuff, right? Currently, the before height, 48 centimeters. Now, we could honestly cross that out and say new. The new height is 72. Now, where people are getting confused, we have to find what the change amount was. So we have to determine what was added on here, right? How do we go from 48 to 72? This is, I knew the word earlier, a question I don't want an answer. Don't shout out answers today when I'm asking you this. This is what you want to do on your paper is what is the amount of change to get from 48 up to 72? That is our numerator. We divide by the previous amount, which is what the plant's height was, right? What the plant's height was. Number 3 is essentially the same, so I'm going to talk about that, then I'll give you guys a couple minutes of break, to work on things. I drew a picture up on the chalkboard, but I drew another one here on this Post-it to help us out. This is actually true information about the sprayer that Mr. Shoup has been using. and that's anytime you guys use calculators and stuff, like I have them come spray everything. The size of a molecule or particle is measured in like microns or different, depending on how big it is, depends on what you measure it with, but the liquid that we're talking about is in microns, very, very small. So it starts at 0.9 and goes to 0.2. So our previous or our starting amount is 0.9. We don't know what it changes by, but I think we can do some math to figure out what it changes by. And we, again, are going to divide change divided by previous and then multiply by 100 to get to proper percent form. In number 4, which is arguably the hardest question, arguably also means like probably. In number 4, what's up, man? Okay. I might have other papers to pass back to you guys too. Yeah, if you did revisions days ago, well, actually, I have not graded revisions turned in this week. So we'll talk about that when we come back together on Zoom about how to do that stuff back and forth on Schoology and Zoom and everything. But right now, let's just worry about our test. So, as you can already pretty much see from my writing that I essentially can't cover up right now, we are always starting with 100%. This is like something that some of you keep hesitating on of like, what do we start with? Well, we start with 100%. We always start with what we have, and that's 100%. Doesn't matter if it's like half a pizza. If we start with it, it's 100%. So the recipe would be 100%. But we increase, guys, what does increase tell us to do mathematically? Add, right? So we increase by 150%. So we're going to add. Right, so 100%, what we start with, the recipe, plus 150%, and we get 250%. Well, percent of what? Well, it tells you right here, percent of the original recipe. So, if we call the original recipe R, like a pirate, R, we are going to have 250% of R. Of tells me times R, okay, I plugged that in. But I can't use the percent sign. Darn. Well, we can do the swoop-de-swoop, or we can set up the fraction. Either way, we can get to the decimal form of 250%, 2.5. So if you go back to our formulas, our new formula, quote unquote, the new formula, is the new amount will equal the new percent times the previous. So the new amount will equal the new percent. Remember, we don't actually use the percent sign, times the previous or the original. If she uses 5 sticks, is that the new or the old? What's new? It's what she did use, like what she used when she increased the recipe. So she ends up using 5 sticks. That is our new. Now the thing I'm not going to tell you here, and please do not say it out loud. Do not say it out loud. But what you need to figure out is how do I turn 2.5R into 1R? Well, if we remember our CPM strategy, we can make a giant one by doing a certain something, don't say it, on both sides. Because if we do it over here, we can get a giant one, and then we have to do it over here. Whew. Seriously, I feel like the spices are coming out when I talk, and they're getting trapped in my mask. Hot chicken takeover is taking over my mouth. I don't have any milk. I don't drink milk. I'm like lactose intolerant now. So a lot of people Actually, their body gets more sensitive to dairy as you get older because we're the only animals on Earth that drink milk from another creature, and it doesn't necessarily like go well. Like so our bodies aren't necessarily, they don't need it, right? Once you're no longer a kid, the reason why you drink milk as a kid is for your bones, to get that bone density so you don't break bones so easy. Once you're an adult, you don't need milk. There's nothing, like your body doesn't need cow's milk. Again, what we start with, the entire thing, when we start, is 100%. So in this situation, Mr. Flynn, I'm actually just going to show 5 and 6, so we can just talk about both of them. In 5, Mr. Flynn used to play a lot of video games. Now he has kids. Womp womp. So, because the kids take up his time, there's been an 85% decrease in the time he spends playing video games. So what we're looking for is the new time, right? Well, if we pull back our new formula, okay, new equals new percent. Okay, we need new percent. We know his previous time was 200 minutes. But the new percent will be a difference, right? Because decrease tells us to do what math? Subtract, right? A decrease is a subtraction. And number 6 is kind of the opposite. We increase. We solve these both using our purple new formula, but one, our percent goes down, and one, our percent goes up. So I'm going to leave you guys, we only got like one more question left. I'm going to leave you with these for a moment to work. Lily? Yeah, so we had a certain amount of time that Mr. Flynn used to play video games. And let's say like this is the amount of time, right? This was our 100%. We, because Mr. Flynn has kids now, take away or reduce or decrease 85% of it is gone, right? So we say bye-bye, bye-bye to 85% of the time that he used to spend playing video games. What we're asking on this line is what percent does he have left, right? What is left for him now? What percent does he still get to play compared to before? And then how many minutes will that equal? Now, if I'm being truthful, Mr. Flynn, when I showed him this question, actually laughed and said there was a point when I could log 200 minutes gaming in a day. He said in a day. And I'm like, bro, that's like 3 hours. And he's like, I know. So Mr. Flynn used to play a lot of video games. I never played that much video games. Yeah, Kiki? Yeah. So what we get told is with the 150% increase, we increase what? The original. The original that we start with is always 100%. So the new percentage is 250%. We're then going to solve that using our new formula, which says take your new percent and multiply by the previous. What kind of sucks here is we don't know the previous. We don't know how much butter they wanted us to use. We just know how much butter Mrs. Pettigrew did use. So because she did use 5 sticks of butter, this is the new, right? 5 is the new because that's what she ends up using. To figure out what the recipe called for, we have to get R by itself, which we said in class is 1 R, right? We would want like 1 Kiki, or 1 Bella, or 1 me, not 2.5 of me, for the recipe. Back in class, we had a strategy where we could turn any number back into a 1, right? Using the giant 1. Here's what I will show you to remind you. When the number multiplied by our a was 1.05, we just divided by 1.05 to make a giant 1. In this situation, our number in front of the variable is just 2.5. And that's all I can really say about number 4. I'll tell you, the answer should make sense, and it should be less than 5, right? The answer you get, because the amount she used was the bigger recipe. She's making whatever it is she's making for the whole school. Well, not the whole school, like the staff. Sorry, guys. You shouldn't be using it. I know there is a percent symbol on your calculator, but there isn't on every calculator. So that's why we put it into decimal form. If you type in 250% and hit enter, it will either turn into the fraction 250 over 100, or turn into the decimal 2.5, or just give you 250% if it shows the percent sign. But that's unhelpful. We would rather turn it into, so like if you're using a computer calculator or something else, or your phone, may not have the percent sign on it. That's why we got to get used to doing the math without the percent sign.
I'm sorry for the interruption. Could I please see Logan Garber in the remote office for just a moment? Logan?
Yesterday, Miss Warren came on. It was really funny because everybody makes mistakes, right? And like, as long as we're not making fun of people, we can laugh at people's mistakes because it's like we all do it. So Miss Warren got on the announcements and she was like, I apologize for the interruption. Can I see? And she just started tripping on her words. And finally she was like, oh shoot. What was that Wednesday? Okay. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was picture day. That's what it was. All right. Number 7 is very similar to number 6. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back to it because I give you a little bit more help on number 7. So if Miss Allie is going to the book loft to pick up a new book, which actually she has a book at the book loft she needs to go pick up. It's President Obama's book that he wrote. But if she's buying a book that costs $15.50, she's gonna have to pay tax because the book is not food, right? If it's not food, we pay tax. So if the tax is 8%, hey guys, you sitting back there is looking like it's maybe working. I know, but I got 5 minutes left and I'm trying to cover this real fast and I want you guys to hear it. So if we go up by 8%, because tax always increases, the other formula I gave you guys that can be useful here is your total purchase formula, right? If we want to calculate a total purchase, we know that what we have to pay is 100%. Well, we also have to pay tax. Tax is not an option, but it pushes us above 100%. It pushes us above the price that's on the sticker, right? We end up paying more. So we add our 8%, but we can't use the percent sign because not all of our calculators have a percent sign. So we put it into either fraction or decimal form, and then we can do our math. You know what the original price is because it's in your problem up here. And you have a calculator to do this math and figure out what the book costs. Now, I will tell you, the book and tax will be less than $20. Miss Allie can afford this. In part B, please listen carefully, the dollar amount she has left for coffee. There's a specific number that I'm looking for. But to the question, do you think that is enough for a coffee? I will accept either answer, but I want you to write why. Do you think Miss Allie drinks frou-frou coffee that's real expensive and has like, whipped topping and sprinkles or whatever? Or do you think she drinks like black coffee that's like only a couple bucks? Right? Even at Starbucks, an Americano, like a black coffee, it's like $2.75. Like, regular coffee should not be very expensive. A mocha, fropa, latte, frappuccino, whatever, is like $6 or $7, right? More expensive. So take the last couple minutes, finish out the test. Do you think the money she has left is enough to buy a coffee? Why or why not? Try your best, and I will grade what you get done. Whatever you get done, you're going to leave your test here with me. All right, and those of you playing along at home, hopefully if you're under the weather, you get to feeling better soon. And we're switching back to remote, so I will see you guys all on Zoom starting November 30th.